there's a spiritual lineage that we get to operate in. First of all, I just want to honor, there's different family members here tonight and different family members that have been ministers for many, many years themselves. I don't know if you guys know how many people in this church family have parents who've been pastors, missionaries, etc. So go ahead and just give a round of applause for the spiritual heritage that we get to walk in. I really feel strongly to do that. That is not insignificant. And there are so many, how many is it? 5, 6, 7, 8 different families that have someone in here that their parent was a pastor, associate pastor, missionary, etc. It's such a powerful reality. So we just want to honor that and thank you for generational service that we get to stand on shoulders and hopefully be faithful in running the baton forward. That's our job. And so anyway, just so thankful for that. And also our church has a real neat heritage because we were originally a vineyard church way back, as many of you guys know. And the vineyard was founded by a man named John Wimber. And John Wimber really ushered in, I believe, something of a new era of the Spirit. Many people think he's one of the most influential leaders in the body of Christ in the 20th century in America. And one of the things that he had was actually a phrase from his wife. And the phrase was, everybody gets to play. And Carol Wimber was telling John, John, although you flow in these power gifts and you prophesy and you see people healed, John, if you don't get other people doing these, it'll just be the man on the stage. And so she had this phrase, everybody needs to get to play. Kenton is operating in that anointing of everybody gets to play. That's the pulse of this man of God, is that he wants everybody to get to play, everybody to get to step up to the plate, everybody to get to participate in the things of the Spirit. So I just want to encourage you to receive from Kenton. He has a unique grace upon his life to empower you in the things of the prophetic, in the things of the Spirit. And I just want to bless him today as he shares. We receive him and the gift that's on his life. And we ask, Father, that you would double it in Jesus' name. Love you, bro. All right, see if I can get a little more of this tether. Nope, I'm stuck. I think many of you are coming hoping for an Advent service. And gotcha. Gotcha. Peter asked, how many of you have been blessed by the prophetic or impacted by the prophetic? Jesus' birth and crucifixion was prophesied in the book of Isaiah, along with a new covenant that we now walk in and live in. It's a covenant of peace and a covenant of love. Every single one of us has been impacted greatly, eternally, by the prophetic. There's your Advent right there. Yeah, exactly. Read Isaiah 9, I believe. Just out of curiosity, do we have those cards? So I'm going to set this up. These cards we acquired from Global Awakening. It's just the basics of the prophetic. And so some of the things that I'm going to be talking about are on this. I'm covering 2 little sections of it. So there's so much more in the prophetic. And quite frankly, there's so much more the prophetic that we're just not going to cover. So are you guys all right with that? If you came for an exhaustive teaching on the prophetic, I'm sorry. You'll have to come to other prophetic gatherings. And, we have a prophetic company that's been meeting for a couple years that has been transformational. I know for myself personally and for many others, the amount of growth that I've witnessed in that is, it's too much. I can't even. No, I would just leave them on the table over here. After the sermon, help yourselves to that. I don't want you guys to be reading it now. You'll be all distracted. But that's a phenomenal resource. And thank you, Agathos, for supplying those free of charge for us. That's awesome because there is a cost associated with it. Last week, we talked about love, didn't we? We thought we were talking about the prophetic, but we were talking about love. And in 1 Corinthians 14, it starts off with pursue love.
and desire spiritual gifts, but especially you might prophesy. First Corinthians 14 comes after 1 Corinthians 13, which is read at every wedding ever, right? It's the love chapter. And everything in the prophetic, in my opinion, in my observation, is a message of love from a father to his children. And we get to participate in that. Sometimes it's straight to us. Sometimes he uses us to push a message through that he's so desperate. He will use anyone to communicate his love. Sometimes love looks like correction, doesn't it? And that's okay. In 1 Corinthians 14, there are, there's not a blueprint for the prophetic teaching in the Bible. Are you guys okay with that? Right? We are gathering a few passages here and there, but there is not a detailed syllabus of how to operate in the prophetic. Do you guys remember some of the three words in 1 Corinthians 14 that are intended for the prophetic is intended for? Anyone? Exhortation, edifying, comfort. And later on in that passage, it's revealing the secrets of the heart, that a non-believer would fall on his face and say, God is truly among you. And is it right if I tell a story illustrating that? Because we think sometimes that it's like, okay, a non-believer comes in. If you read the passage, this is kind of what you're going to walk away with, an assumption, at least what I did, that all the dark and dirty secrets of your heart are going to be revealed and exposed. My belief is that we are all created in the image and likeness of God. His DNA is in every single one of us. His glory abides in every single one of us. And it's our job to find that gold and bring it out. Sometimes you got to move the dirt out of the way in order to excavate deep into the heart of someone and find the gold. But we're not here to fling dirt around or mud around. We're here to find the gold and expose it. We had, in 2010, my wife and I had asked a missionary couple from Central Asia just to walk with us and mentor us for a season of life. We had them over for lunch Sunday afternoon, and I was just in a funk, like a season of funk. You know, has anyone else been in a season of funk? All right, I'm not alone. And they just began to talk and find beautiful things in me, I guess. And they started praying for me. Do you remember this, babe? And I had, I was just receiving, right? And I had this picture of this like clay jar that was just not special at all. Basically me, right? Just a clay jar. But inside that jar was this green, glowing liquid. And I knew instantly that is the glory and the love of God that abides inside of me. And it just wrecked me right there. From that encounter, through a friend of theirs, I had an opportunity to travel to Istanbul, Turkey. There was a pastor out of Chicago that was doing a conference. And he just invited me. Never met me before. I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I was just going and whatever, And he tricked me. He got me prophesying. I'll tell a story about that later. Who can prophesy? All flesh. In the book of Joel, it says, in the last days, I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Are we in the last days? Maybe. I think so, probably. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Are you guys all flesh? I mean, you're a son or daughter to someone, you can prophesy. We also made this declaration over ourselves. I was created for this. This is my gift. This is my grace. I was made to prophesy. Why don't we repeat that again? I was created for this. This is my gift. This is my grace. I was made to prophesy. I need to hear a little more confidence there. I was created for this. This is my gift. This is my grace. I was made to prophesy. All right, you said it. Gotcha. My goal here is really to be helpful and to inspire. Inspire you to connect with the person of love and receive a message and deliver it to his children. That's my goal. If I can help you in that process, mission accomplished. There are so many different ways that you receive a word from the Lord, right? And like we use these terminology like, I got a word. You know, what's a word? What does it look like? So here are a few, maybe here are most of the ways. You can think it, you can see it, you can feel it, you can say it, you can experience it, you can dream it. So think it, you have got a strong thought. Like maybe a passage comes to mind, right? You didn't visualize this passage where it is in your Bible, but a passage in the Bible comes to mind for someone while there's a trigger that happens. You're thinking it's a very strong thought about something. You see it. I see this a lot. Like this is a very common one. You see it, you get a mental picture. Your imagination is just kind of like going nuts on you. Or sometimes there's an open vision, like your whole field of view is taken over by this vision of something. Has anyone had a vision? We've got a couple hands, right? So it's not in everyone. I'm not saying everyone can't operate in that. It's just like, it's kind of rare and unique where it's like, I can't see anything but this vision, of whatever the Lord is bringing in front of me. You can feel it. Joy, hope, fear, love, sorrow, shame. Sometimes that's the gift of discernment or the distinguishing of spirits operating. And like sometimes you don't know what to do with it. When I was in Turkey that very first time, I was praying for this young man, and his wife was a doctor, and she dragged him to the front, and she's like, you need to pray for him. He needs to find a job. And as I was praying for him, I felt so much sorrow and shame. But at the same time, this love for this young man. And for those of you who don't, the Middle East and many parts of the world, it's a shame-based culture. Like, that's how they keep you in line. Like, they have sayings, like, it's like, that is so shameful, and it's like you bring shame on your family. And so, like, we just think, oh, man, poor guy. But that was incredibly embarrassing and shameful for him. But here I am, laying my hands on him, and I am an absolute mess. Like, I'm feeling everything that he should be feeling. And he's just there stoic, wondering what in the world is this white guy doing? Because he is a puddle. There is just streams of fluid. Steve, the guy I went with, he's walking by and he's like, well, this is unique. This is different. And then, walks on. And he's just kind of like that. You can say it. How many of you have been sharing something with someone and all of a sudden these words pop out of your mouth that you have never thought of in your entire life, and they just came out? And with that, oftentimes is this sense like, oh my goodness, there was something on that. Like, that is not normal, right? I'll feel it. That's out of the Psalms. Yeah. Experience it. Some people have seen appearances of the Lord, like angels, some maybe even an audible or an internal voice, maybe even a taste or smell. So there's an experience with the prophetic. And dreams. Like, this is a not normal dream, right? Like, we all kind of dream, but this is a not normal dream. Like, I can't shake this dream, right? I know that there are some who operate very strongly in that. I want to also, I've had some very strong, not normal dreams that were not prophetic. Okay. I had a dream that, do you guys know Bethel Church in Redding, California? Their senior leader, Bill Johnson. It's a large mega church. Well, I had a dream that I was out in Bethel teaching Bill Johnson how to perform prophetic interpretive dance. And we were twirling around on the stage and pirouetting. How many of you know I'm not going to go out to Bethel and teaching him that? Now, if some of you are interested, you can see me after the service and I will walk you through. I'm just kidding. Please don't. No, that would not be a good thing. Okay. I've also had a dream that down spiraled me into an 18-month season of anxiety and insecurity and hopelessness and depression because my identity was in the wrong thing. Where I couldn't sleep hardly. I had anxiety coursing through my veins throughout the night and throughout the day. I was just a non-functioning human being for almost 18 months. So dreams need to be processed with the Holy Spirit. And oftentimes they're intended for intercession. That you're not supposed to actually act on it, but you're actually called to pray and partner with the Lord in that. So this one's going to be fun. So those are like different ways of how to receive a word, right? There are also prophetic types, like seers, perceivers, feelers, right? I'm not the authority on all of that, and I think that because there's not an instruction manual on all of this, we have to create terminology to help describe that process. So a seer, for example, is going to have a mental picture, vision, imagination. They're going to experience it, feel it. Feelers might fall into this category, right? And that's one side of the spectrum. On the other is a perceiver who can perceive what the Lord wants to do, and they have the faith to declare that with the full expectation that that will come to pass, right? So one's getting a mental picture. They're seeing something. They see numbers and colors and words, right? Brenda, for a season of life, saw blue letters over people, right? I've never had that, but that's, a seer prophetic. And I feel like there's a spectrum from the, seer and the perceiver, someone who's perceiving what the Lord is doing and makes that declaration. So you can get a mental picture, and somewhere along the prophetic, you're like, what is that for? And then you speak it and, prophesy over that. My very first prophetic word, so going back to Istanbul, Turkey. We're in worship, the first night of the conference. Steve leans over to me and says, all right, here's what we're going to do. I didn't know the game plan, but now I do. You're going to look around the room during worship, and you're going to get a word for someone, right? And then I'm going to call you up after my talk, and you are going to deliver that word. And I didn't even know why I was going. I had never done any of this before. And I did not grow up with that experience and that expression, right? So this is a brand new experience for me. And so I'm looking around the room, because I asked him, how do you do that? He's like, the Lord will just highlight someone for you, and then he'll just give you a word. It was like, duh, that's so easy. And so I'm looking around the room. I see this lady. She's probably mid to upper 40s, and she is worshiping with abandon. She is, like Mark said, pouring out, emptying herself in worship to the Lord. And I was moved by that. And I'm like, you know what that reminds me of? Hannah in the Old Testament. there was a lady who could not conceive with child. And she went to the temple and she was just like a wreck, asking the Lord for a child. Like, this lady's asking the Lord for a child, just like Hannah. So I write it down in my book. I have a little black book, and Steve's like, what'd you write there? And I show him. He's like, nothing like jumping in the deep end. He was, oh, okay. Yeah. Just try to stay away from prophesying babies, dates, and mates, right? Like, the Lord has you to marry me, you know? Yeah. You might want to process that with a few other people for a while. But he was gracious enough to let me share that word. And so I asked her when I got up afterwards, I said, do you have any children? And she's like, yeah, I've got 3 grown children. Oh, man. Okay, here it goes. And I said, I feel like you are Hannah in the Old Testament, and you are pouring out your heart to the Lord, asking him for children. Does that mean anything? And we're going through an interpreter, right? And she was like, there's this commotion happening back there. And, word finally gets to me. Yes, where we live, there are street children. And it has been our desire to start a ministry to street children. We have been asking the Lord for children to come, right? So that's the seer, right? I saw a picture. You're like Hannah, right? Here's the perceiver part. And this just came out of me. I feel like those children, much like Samuel, because Samuel was the child of Hannah, and she gave him back into service to the Lord, and he became a prophet, the prophet of Israel. Those children will grow up and serve the Lord, just like Samuel did, right? And so there's this faith forthtelling attached to that. Here's another kind of perceiver story. It's the story of Gideon in the Old Testament. So Gideon this is before Israel was an actual nation, and this is found in the book of Judges. But this angel comes and sits under a terebinth tree, and he's watching Gideon thresh wheat in a wine press, hiding it from the Midianites. And I think the Midianites either were an invading army or an occupying army or people group, and they were stealing their food. And so Gideon is trying to hide this from that, right? And the angel comes to him and he says, "The Lord is with you, you mighty man of valor." And Gideon's like, "You got the wrong guy. I am not out, I am trying to hide. I am scared for my life. You have got the wrong guy." And the angel repeats it, "Look, you're the mighty man of valor here." I'm paraphrasing. Are you guys okay if I paraphrase? All right. You're not going to be like, he did not read the Bible. No, it's in there. So this is the story. Gideon, you guys know then, raises up an army, follows the Lord, and the Lord's like, "You got too many people. You're going to have to let half of them go," right? And he tests the Lord in this, but eventually he ends up delivering the people, the tribes or children of Israel from the Midianites, right? Well, actually, it was the Lord. They just kind of did some stuff, and the Midianites killed themselves. Was he a mighty man of valor? Was he known in the flesh as a mighty man of valor? Well, he became it, certainly. But there was a prophetic word. The angel's like, "I don't care how you're known here." Because Gideon's making all these excuses. "Look, my family is the smallest family here. We are the most insignificant people. You've got the wrong guy." And the angel's like, "I don't, because in heaven, you're known as mighty man of valor. I know you of no other name. I don't care how you think of yourself. This is who you are." Many of you don't know this about Nicaea. Nicaea was, when we were homeschooling them for the first couple years. This is my daughter, Nicaea. Hey, raise your hand. Yay. Beautiful young lady. Nicaea was absolutely terrified of going to school for the first time in the second grade. And there was separation anxiety, there was just anxiety and fear. And we tried to comfort her, and she would oftentimes, the summer before that school year, would cry herself to sleep, like inconsolable, out of fear of going into this new environment. At some point, I don't know when it was in this journey, because it wasn't like an overnight thing, but there were nights where when I tucked them in, I'd pray over her, and I said, Nicaea, you are so brave. You are so courageous. Even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you will fear no evil. And I tried to find all the words surrounding courage, and valiant and brave, and I spoke them over her. Was she that? Was she brave? Was she courageous? Not in the moment. But when that word eventually settles it takes a community. Nicaea did go to school. She was a mess. For the first day, we didn't know if she was going to make it through the day. But it took a season of life, and she has become so brave. You would never know that about her, would you? Those of you who know Nicaea. She has ran and won every opportunity for student council. She stood in front of people talking. She has friends reach out to her. They're wanting to start a Bible study. Is that how she was known? As brave and courageous? No, but she's becoming it, right? It's the same thing with Gideon. In 2 Corinthians 5, it says, for the love of Christ compels us, ... Therefore, from now on, we regard no one according to the flesh. Even though we have known Christ according to the flesh, yet now we know him, thus no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Now all things are of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ and has given us the ministry of... That is, that God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, not imputing their trespasses to them, and has committed to us the word of reconciliation. I got a word for you. I give you my word. What are you using your words for? Hopefully it's not imputing their trespasses against them. We use our words for all sorts of things for destruction, right? Have you ever, I've said this a time or two, man, my back is killing me. Is it? What if we used our words for something different to bring reconciliation? There's just a power in that. In the prophetic, there is foretelling the future and there is forthtelling the future. Foretelling the future is saying this will come to pass. And I know some in here have had amazing foretelling, like people have foretold something and it actually came to pass. Dreams, foretelling, right? You could argue that there's a little bit of forthtelling in the foretelling. Forthtelling is the words that come out of my mouth are actually creating the future. The Lord spoke the universe into existence by using words. And he's invited us into co-creating with him. We are creating something or destroying something with our words. My challenge in the most loving way is, what are we using our words for? Because life and death are in the power of the tongue. We're very comfortable with the death part, but the life part is going to require a little bit of encouragement and pushing it out. And I know that I have spoken things over myself that I have massive regrets about, but I've also spoken things over myself and others that have changed their lives forever and my life forever. So at the end of everything, it really is it's a message of love and reconciliation of a desperate Father who wants to push a message through us, a message of love and hope and comfort and encouragement, to speak courage into people, into his children, because he loves them. So there's so much more. There's so much more of the prophetic. But I'm going to turn the tables on you guys. Is that all right? Maybe. Look, if I could do it, anybody can. Many of you have been able to journey with us in the last couple weeks through the prophetic. And I had a panel of 4 people up here last week, and I'm going to have 3 more today. If you ladies, you know who you are. If you guys want to come up, I'm going to continue a few words of instruction. How many of you have never given a word in your lives? 1. Okay. There might be a few more out there. It's okay if you didn't raise your hand. But I would love if after this, there's going to be a ministry time. We're going to invite all 7 of the panelists. And Peter and Megan, you guys are welcome to join. Derek and Aaron, you guys are welcome to join. And we'll just kind of spread out here, maybe two by two. And be willing to allow what they share to minister to you, right? I have a feeling that there was some, like, you could identify with something someone shared. Lois shared, Mark shared, Brian shared last week, Anna shared. I don't know if she's here today. And then Jules, Suyan, and Sarah are going to share as well. I'm going to interview them, and it's going to be so rich and so wonderful. But be willing to get a word. Something that they're going to say is going to trigger something in you, and your imagination is going to start spinning. And be willing to just come up. Guys, it's totally fine to fail. In fact, there's an expectation for failure as it pertains to prophecies. In 1 Corinthians 13, it says, where there are prophecies, they will fail. Okay? So there is an expectation for failure. And this is a very safe environment to try something on for size, right? But be willing to come up, receive prayer from them, but also, hey, I was just thinking about this, and share a word with them. Give it a shot. We're not going to give you a microphone. It's totally fine. And there will be no shame or condemnation, but just come up and be willing to share. Even if you operate in the prophetic day in and day out, or it's like no problem, please come up and share a word with them. Right? This is going to be very interactive. Are we good with that? Anyone a little nervous? Shouldn't be. Andrew's excited. You going to share a word? You should. You got good words, buddy. All right. Let's transition here for a second. How many of you guys were blessed by the panelists last week? Wasn't that good? How many of you were encouraged to get this going? Yes. Yes. All right. We're going to have some more of that. And do you guys pick up that there's such a diversity of this expression in our body, in this family? And that's really the goal, is I want to highlight some of that. And there's even more. And I got a chance to talk with these ladies yesterday, and I spent like almost 4 hours of my day just asking questions, because it was like, here's a question and here's a follow-up question, because I'm genuinely intrigued and inspired by their story, and I think you guys will be as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just ask. Let me find it. Ask the question, and if it's helpful or if you have something to share, share it. If not, pass. It's totally good. Tell me a short example of a time when hearing God changed your life or the life of another.
Okay, I'll go. So some of you have heard this story, but I think it'll be helpful for others who haven't heard it before. But when I was working at my job before the one I'm in now, I received a picture in my mind. I generally am a visual learner. I see pictures and receive visions, and God uses my imagination. And God gave me a picture in my mind of a lumberjack cutting down a tree, and then he yells timber, the tree comes down, and then he starts to cut the tree up and he builds this beautiful cabin out of the tree. And in the depths of my heart, I just knew that was to do with my job, and I knew that that tree that was coming down was my job, and that I was going to be let go from the role I was in. And I didn't really think too much into it, but a few months later, I was called into a meeting with my supervisor, and she said, we have been told that we're going to be reducing headcount, and just wanted to let you know that will be happening in our team soon. And so in my heart, I just knew that was the timber, that was the warning. And a month later, I was called into another meeting and I was let go. And I knew that God had guarded my heart and wanted to prepare me for that. It was the same month and the same week I was getting married and preparing for two weddings, one here and one back home, and consecutive weekends. There was a lot going on, and I just know that God knew that I needed to prepare myself for also losing my job, which my visa was also attached to, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to come back in the country or leave the country, and there was just a lot going on. So that was what impacted me the most and transformed my life in terms of knowing that God had shared this with me out of his love for me and wanting to protect me. And it was the foretelling. Yeah.
And consequently, I mean, can you imagine losing your job a week before your wedding? Multiple way before your weddings with your visa attached to it. Like, that was so loving of the Father. And it gave you the courage just to walk through it and be like, look, it's going to be okay. God already said he's going to build a cabin out of this.
Yes.
And so it gave you the courage.
Yeah, and hope.
And hope, yeah. To walk through that. You're still here.
Yes, I'm still here, thankfully.
Sion, Jewel.
Well, I didn't say this when we were on the phone, but that triggered me thinking in 2020, I had been ready for a change. I'd been at my church my whole life and my job for 13 years. And in conversation with I had been asking God for something new for a long time. Then in talking to a friend, it was March 2020, and our conversation triggered me asking God again for something new. And in this instance, I heard God through my thoughts and in praying to him. And it was like, as I started considering, seeking a new church and seeking a new job, it was like I had opened up, those mattresses that unfold when you get them out of the box. And it was like I had taken it out of the box and there was absolutely no way that I could stuff it back in. And I just knew that I could pursue other things.
Yeah. That's awesome. Great word. Sion.
I'll start by saying that I grew up in the church, but I was under the view that experiencing God, encountering God was like a very rare thing. And so with that, when I was in high school, I was like choosing, I had to choose a college. And it came down to the day before, the decision day, and I still couldn't decide between two colleges. And so in my prayer, there was a lot of hedging, like, God, maybe it doesn't matter where I go to college, but if it matters at all, like, I want to choose the right college. And I didn't hear anything, and I went to sleep. And I usually don't have vivid dreams, but I had a dream where I was standing in front of this library tower, looking at it, and all these bells were ringing. And when I woke up, I knew this was one of the colleges that I was choosing between. But when I visited, I didn't remember there being any bells. And so based on the visual, I thought to myself, I think this is it. And the last kind of test or last kind of confirmation I was seeking was like an okay from my mom, because she wanted me to choose the other college. So in the morning when I woke up, I told my mom that I was leaning on choosing this other college, and she was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, I guess that's it. Yeah. And move-in day, I had like 2 luggages and like 2 backpacks on, and I was walking across the library, feeling like, okay, I'm in college now. And then all these bells started ringing. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm home. And that's where I met Sam, so.
Yeah. We'll save his dream
Yeah.
for another time. Or maybe you're free to share it here. What is your preferred way to hear God? How does it tend to work for you as far as seer, perceiver, see it, feel it, think it, say it, dream it? How does that work?
I've already shared a little bit of how God gives me words and I see pictures and he uses my imagination. But one of the things that he has encouraged me to do is to intentionally ask and to be specific and to say, do you have a word for so-and-so? And to just be really intentional with it. And I think that really helps to just align my will with his will. Yeah. And just to surrender to what he wants to do and what he wants to share, and just to ask and to be willing to receive.
Yeah. So where some people might they can't help it, they just keep getting words. You know, your process is a little more intentional, where it's like, I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to ask the Lord for a word for either for myself, like the circumstances, or for someone else, and it activates something in you.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I can confirm that those words are good to receive from Sarah.
Yeah.
For me, the 3 main ways I hear from God is through pictures, mental pictures that come into my mind, through thoughts that I didn't come up with, and through dreams as well.
For you are a writer. Through seasons of life, it's not an everyday thing, but you have a creative process in that. And where, for me, sometimes words will come out of my mouth that I didn't think. When you're writing, words have come out of your hand.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's just like something flows.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And I don't know where they came from.
Yeah.
Well, I do know where they came from.
But so I also mentioned something last time, 2 weeks ago, that sometimes the supernatural feels so natural. Like it's more natural than super. And sometimes it's like I don't think that the Lord is actually using me, or saying anything to me, when it's actually like it just, because it feels so natural, and you're expecting some sort of like jolt of electricity or something to happen, and it doesn't. It's just very natural. And so you're just casually writing, and all of a sudden, bloop, something comes out onto the page, and it's like,
Yep.
what about you, Sue?
Yeah, generally just thoughts. A lot of usually verses come to mind for people. And I will say, I think that something happens subconsciously or maybe physiologically when you build a habit of spending time with God in a certain place. So for me, again, in college, like I used to multitask a lot. So a lot of my prayers happened when I was at the gym, like on the elliptical. And so even now when I'm exercising or on the bike, I feel like I get inspired thoughts or like answers to prayers.
Yeah, that works for me as well. And when I'm gardening or tinkering with a bicycle or something, like using my hands, and all of a sudden like stuff starts coming. So if any of you guys want a word, invite me over to help do some landscaping. But yeah, and but you've used that. You're like, hey, I've got to hear from the Lord. You're on your elliptical, right? That's yeah.
I have something else to add to that. I also just wanted to share that I don't always receive the application straight away or know the reason why I'm seeing this picture. And sometimes I actually have to share it before I know what it means or getting a download of sort of the purpose for me receiving it or an application for that. And sometimes I don't get something and it will resonate with them or it won't resonate with them, but it's all about faith and taking risks. And it's so helpful to be in a safe space where you can feel comfortable taking risks.
Yeah.
Because there's been many times when I'll receive a picture and not have a clue what it means, and then I don't share it because it's just weird.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's helpful.
We've said historically faith is spelled R-I-S-K. And I would challenge you that love is also spelled R-I-S-K. In order to get a message of love to someone, you have to take a risk. And yeah, that's happened. Sometimes, and here's an addition to that. Sometimes you don't get the full picture. We see through a glass dimly, right? And it's okay to get something and take the risk. Hey, I don't know if this means anything. I think there was one time I got a name for someone, and I said, hey, this is an elderly lady. Does the name Carol mean anything to you? And she said, that's my maiden name. What does it mean? I'm like, I don't know. and she's like, I don't know either. But she felt so loved and seen, and she was just attached to me for the rest of the evening like I was her grandson. And she, like, whatever that was that God could see her, moved her. And so sometimes you have to take that risk. Thinking back through a breakthrough the God's given you and hearing him, share the breakthrough, and then what is one thing that you could pray and impart that same breakthrough to others?
What comes to mind is something that Kenton had an exercise when we were gathered for the Prophetic company, and he had us all write a word down for someone. So we just spent some time just writing down what came to mind. And for me, what came to mind was an eagle who was soaring over the earth. It was not tied down to other people's experience or expectation, very free, who could see an overview of what was happening. So Kenton invited us to read the word with the rest of the group. And after I read what I had written, Sue Young said, I think these words are for ourselves.
Yeah.
Which Kenton said was true.
Gotcha.
And that was so tricky because it blew my mind, because when I was writing, I felt the truth of it. I felt so much joy. It just flowed. I knew it was true, and I knew it was for someone. But if I had known I was written for myself, I would never have received it.
Yeah.
But I've seen the truth of it over the last year or however long it's been, I've thought of that so many times because I've seen the truth of it in my own life, and it's just been very encouraging to me.
Yeah.
For me, a breakthrough that I've had from a prophetic word that I received was back. It was all about my identity, and back when I was back in the job that I was in before, God had been working in my heart, and since working through what I believe about myself. And he said to me, and this is like the words that I received was, you have been trying to prove yourself so you don't get found out that you're not good enough. And that was just huge because it was sort of just a wake-up moment for me that I had been attaching my identity with my performance and my work. And I have had perfectionist tendencies to just want to be accepted and earn my acceptance. And that was just the start of the journey for me to receive healing from that. And that when I left the old job and I got this new position, and the first thing that someone said to me, my colleague said to me, this is a safe place to fail. And it was just those few words just went straight back to what God had shared with me. And I just knew that I was on this healing journey.
Yeah, where your identity was attached to performance. And not just that, but like an ability as well. And then be able to deliver that ability, which when that gets removed, what happens with your identity? It goes with it, and you had that healing journey of being able to say it's okay to not hit the mark every single time.
Yeah.
What about you, Sue?
Yeah, I think the biggest change that I've experienced since coming to Agathos and since joining Prophetic Company is that I've always wanted to hear from God, but I sought it through other people. And I think now it's like having the faith that I can and that God wants to talk to me directly and talk to other people through me has been something that I greatly appreciate and I'm trying to develop more in my life.
Jewel, share about that trigger event for you that opened up your world to the prophetic and to the supernatural. You were in a community that didn't exactly was not a normal expression. Tell me about that.
So a lot of you probably heard how 13 years ago God really moved in our community where there were just a couple people that really wanted to seek after God. And so weekly there was a small group that started meeting, and God really began to move, and the group grew every week. So toward one of the first meetings, it was actually exactly 13 years ago in December, there was a visitor that came, and he moved in the prophetic strongly, and he went around speaking to each one of us. That was my first exposure really to specific prophetic words, and he totally read my mail. I mean, things that he could never have known. He just spoke over me, about my life, and I felt so loved, so seen, and I knew it was from God. That was my first exposure, really life-changing.
I want Sarah to share another experience she had with the prophetic and while you were in college. Before that, if any of you can believe that the Lord has words for other people and you have no problem loving other people or receiving the love of God for someone else, but you struggle with that being for you, please see Jewel after the service and let her pray for you, and then pray for her.
Okay, so when I was in college, I was part of a church that went on yearly retreats for the weekend. And this first weekend away that we went on, there was a guest speaker who was a prophet, or he had prophetic gifts, and he was giving words out to different people, and he gave me a word about my next coming year at university. And he said to me that I would get the opportunity to help untangle thoughts and beliefs in someone's mind about who God is and about church and about the Trinity, and that it would look like a comb going through wet hair, untangling knots in their mind. So I didn't really, this was sort of my first experience of receiving the words, so I didn't know really quite what to do with it. But that following year at university, I met my neighbor in my dormitory, and lo and behold, he had some very interesting thoughts and beliefs about who God was and about church and about the Trinity. And because I had received that word, I was empowered to walk through this with him, and to really to help him to get to know who God truly is because of that word that I had received.
That literally happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just so amazing and
Yeah.
impactful for me, because it was another foretelling of, and it actually came to pass.
Yeah. So do you have any experience where you were like awakened to the things of the Spirit?
I think it seems unrelated, but I think I'll try to tie it in. So between my freshman and sophomore year in college, I was in India for a few months. And for some reason, I was like really grappling with love, like what is love? And everyone I met, I was like trying to understand their definition and their view, and trying to understand like what does it mean for God to be love? And I came away from the summer not having an answer, but really being filled with joy. And I guess I'm tying it in by saying I really appreciate Kenton's emphasis on prophecy being about love and being rooted in love, because as I look back, for me, seeking prophetic prayer, seeking prayer, and seeking what God has for me prior to this season of my life was for truth, was for correctness, was so that I didn't make mistakes, for me to know that I was going down the right path. But to me now, prophecy and prophetic words is about relationship, and it's about the love of the Father for me and for others. And that's so different and so much more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'd like is to move into a time of ministry. Mark, Lois, if you guys want to come up. Peter, if Megan's around, come on up. Derek and Aaron. Brian, yeah, come on up. These are the panelists and obviously leadership of the church. Do you have some music to play, Jacob? What I would love is just kind of pair up. I know that some of you have been sitting here and you've been moved by some of these testimonies and stories. If you're looking for an encounter with love, or that helping, like something that you need as far, you can love other people, but receiving love for yourself is just a little bit of a struggle. Please see Suyan, Jewel. With Sarah, it's about identity. If you need an adjustment in identity, please hang out with Sarah. For Mark, I'm going to say, if you need strength to stay the course and you don't know if you've got what it takes, Mark has lived a life of following the Lord that can cover both him and you, of staying the course through the storm, through 25 years of a storm. If you are moved with compassion for those in pain or in need, please see Lois. And those who are suffering. For Brian, if your heart breaks for the lost.
Or if you need better sweaters.
Yeah. If your style is a 0 and you need to go to 11.
You'll bring your hips to 11.
Yeah. Jingle bells. Marketplace, if you prophesy in the marketplace, Peter has written the book on that. But that's where Peter operates, and being able to see corporations and what their needs are, and to be able to deliver it in a palatable manner that's not too Christianese or churchy. If you worship the creatives, please see Derek and Aaron. If you want to feel what the love of the Father feels like, please see Megan. And just let her hug you. So we're just scatter out. There's no pressure, guys. There's no pressure. I just don't want you to miss out on something that could be transformational. Oh, in Cleveland.
Yeah, welcome, by the way, to those that are online, Cleveland, maybe New Hampshire, those that are in town today, too. Suyan has a word for someone.
So the word is, I think somebody is letting men get in the way of you enjoying the blessings of the Lord. And the image I have, the analogy is, you have a favorite meal at a restaurant, but you have one bad experience with the waiter, so you don't go back to that restaurant. And I think God is saying, go ask for another waiter. Go enjoy the meal that you like. And don't let men get in the way.
I had a word, too, to give this context. This is actually for Sophia. Can I give you a word? I saw, obviously you started college, congratulations. But I was kind of taken away when Kenton started speaking, and I felt like the Lord was giving this word for you. And it was like I could see, it's almost like you were in your dorm room and the lights go out at night, but then the lights go out, but your worship turns on. And I think that God's inviting you into, like, as your head hits the pillow, your heart's going to start to worship him in ways that maybe you haven't experienced, maybe you have, and even if you have, it's going to be more. And it's actually it's going to be in the place of the light turning off and your worship turning on is actually going to light your path over the next multiple years. And the worship is actually going to be a light unto your feet. Lois has it. Okay.
Megan from last time, I got another, is she in here? Oh, there you are. Relative to the fire and flame that I saw you holding, actually, I got the word this week when I was praying, just beacon, so just to add into last time's. Neil, where's Neil? Oh, there. Neil, I got a picture for you of a flag, and the flag is in the middle of a field, kind of by itself, and it's blowing in the wind, and it's, I don't want to say proud. Christians just don't like that word. But it's unabashed, and that's you. Your faith is unabashed. It is, you have no hesitation anywhere to just have the flag up for Christ. And that's just really beautiful, right? Yeah. Nicaea, I had this last time for you, but I didn't know what it meant. A bow on a gift, like a present. And I knew you were the bow, but I didn't know what it meant. And it took me, this morning I got it. The bow makes the present really attractive, and it makes the people want to discover the gift. The gift is Jesus. You're the bow on the gift. The bow is also beautiful, and it's all by itself on the gift box. It's very accessible, all alone, and unguarded, vulnerable, but unafraid. And the gift box is big. It's beautiful to him because he knows how accessible your heart is to him. Don Clay, yeah. I just felt like my heart just feels like you're the weeping prophet Jeremiah, just where it says, my eyes are like fountains. Your heart beats with his, and your heart is so open that you feel what he feels. It flows out like a fountain. His pain is your pain, and it just flows. It's uncontainable. And I think that's very pleasing to him. And my last one is for Paul. So in construction, when they have a failing basement, they want to put in I-beams to, if the wall is crushing, they want to put in a big, thick I-beam. It's shaped like an eye. And they're usually lifetime guaranteed, and they'll bolster up the wall. When it's a train wreck and there's nothing they can do, they'll come in and they'll shake their head and they'll say, all I can think of, you just have to get a pier. You have to come in and pier it. It's extensive. They use piers for superstructures, right? And they're wide and strong, and they go very deep, even in a pier, in the ocean even, and also skyscrapers. And I felt like you are a pier. You don't look like a pier to people necessarily yet, but you are your faith is immovable. It's strong. Your character is also, and he knows that. And that's a power.
Guess I'll piggyback on this, and I guess this is a little bit of a teaching also. Lois and I spend a lot of time together praying for our children. So it's no coincidence that she received a word for Paul. Paul, I also have a word for you. I saw an iron. I usually don't get visions. I saw an ironing on an iron-on onto your shirt. And I said, Lord, what's this all about? And he told me that these prophetic dreams that you have started to have, you see your life as, this is my life, and then these dreams are something else that just happens to me. And he's saying, no, that is part of your life. That's the iron-on. That is part of your fabric. That is part of your DNA. That is a gift that I have given to you that I want you to press into the same way the iron has pressed that onto you. And he wants you to dig deeper with him into that.
Kate. I think you know this, and it's funny because I feel like I've said it before, but I think the Lord just wants to keep hitting this home with you. That you have an unusually powerful voice in the marketplace, and that who you are as a leader, and the way that you lead your company, and the way, how do I explain? So many leaders of companies and employees and leaders of departments and so on and so forth are out on public media saying everything that's wrong. And you are constantly a voice that is saying what can be right. And you are leavening what is happening in that space, in that communication space in the marketplace. And I want to bless you because it is not just something that you are consistently doing, it is something that you carry. And every time that you speak, and every time that you enter a space, and every time that you open your mouth, and every time you're asked to give your input on something, you carry that into that place. And that is kingdom leavening the marketplace through your voice. So I just want to bless you that you carry that, and don't stop and don't lose heart.
Yeah, I had a quick one for Marcus. I just felt like the Lord wanted you to know, do you know why parents have kids? I'm not asking how, but why. why do parents have kids? It's because they want to enjoy them. Heather and I don't have 5 kids because we needed them to accomplish anything. We didn't need them to be anyone for us. We didn't need them to be anything to us. We had kids because we had a love that was overflowing, that we wanted to share it with someone else. And we had kids to enjoy them. And I just felt like the Lord wanted you to know your parents didn't have you for you to accomplish anything specific, or to do anything, or to perform anything. They had you because they loved you and they wanted to enjoy you. And that's the same with the Father. He loves you and wants to enjoy you.
Amen. All right. I know that some of you are probably getting hungry and you want to go have your Sunday lunch. You guys are welcome to do that. But you're also invited to come up and receive ministry and minister. And let's just keep it going. Love you all.